Hi, in this episode we'll see how we can test Angular controllers and have a glimpse on how to use Protractor for end-to-end testing. So we developed custom directive for the navbar, and this directive uses a special controller which has a logic for defining active link. We need to test this logic. So let's go to editor and let's open main.js controller test. So we go to test, spec, controllers, main.js. And for now, I'm going to remove everything in this describe block so we can start from the end to understand better how all these parts work together. So here, let's describe isActive method. So there's going to be a function, and inside of it, let's define our example. So it returns true when paths are the same. There's going to be a function. Okay, so first of all, what we expect. We expect that when we call isActive method on the scope with the parameter test, it should be truthy, so it should return true value if the current path is also test. So to set current path, we will use location service of Angular and we make the path to test, like this. So now we need to inject location, we need to inject scope, we need to inject controller. So let's do this. So here we define before each block and we inject into this function. So this inject function is provided by Angular and it allows us to inject services right into this function. So we need the controller helper that will help us to initialize controller instance. We need to have root scope, which we use to instantiate new scope for our controller. We need to have location, so we can set our current path. Okay, so now let's set location to location and scope to root scope dot new, like this. And after that, we need to instantiate controller, and we do it with the controller helper, and we provide the name of the controller, which is navigation controller. And the second parameter is just an object where we define scope as newly created scope. Okay, so now let's define these variables. So we need location, we need scope. Good. So let's go to terminal. Let's save this file. Let's go to terminal and run karma start. And it fails with a lot of things, but the most important thing, the argument navigation controller is not a function, so it's undefined. And that happens because we need to inject the application itself, the module where this controller is. So for that, we use before each special method module provided by Angular, and then the name of our application, front app. Now when we save it, we are green. Great. So this is the basic structure of a controller test. So first we fetch module, or the whole application, or the specific module where controller resides. Then we inject needed dependencies, and here we define some, we mock some, or we instantiate some like such. And then we make in the examples. Okay, let's create another example for our function. Of course, this should be the bad path, so it returns false when paths are different. So that's a function, and I'm gonna just copy these two lines and paste them here. But here we will have the different path. Let's save it, and of course here I expect it to be falsy. Let's save it again, and we green. Excellent. So let's add another one, and I'm gonna take this example, I'm gonna copy it and paste here. And this particular one returns true if it starts with the same word. So what I mean by this, if the current path is something like test1 show, then it still should be truthy. So this way, our navigation will highlight to the user in which category of the site it is now. So when we save it, of course we fail. So to fix this, let's open a split here at the bottom, and let's open our navigation controller. And here, instead of returning the path, we'll create a current path. So there's going to be a current path, and let's define this current path. And it's going to be a location path, and we're going to split this location path. So location path returns to us the current path. So for example, like here, /test/1, etc. So we're going to take this path and we're going to split it by slash and take the second parameter. So the first one, the 0, will be the empty string, and then the test that we need. And then when we have in here the path, we also need to split it because the path also has this slash here. So we're going to split it as well by slash and take the second element. Let's save it, and we're back to green. Great. This solution will fail for query strings though. So let's have a look by creating a new example. So I'm going back to our test. I copy this thing here, and we're going to make it like it returns true if it starts with the same word followed by query string. And what I mean by this is that we have the current path like this, test, and then for example ID 1. Okay, so if we save it, of course we fail, so we go to implementation, and this solution a little bit ugly, but it will work. So what we do here, we add another split by question mark, and we take the first parameter. So we split in this test thing by question mark and taking only this test. And when we save it, we back to green. So, and our application should work fine. So let's have a look. I'm going to quit this and run grunt serve. And you can see that application still works fine. So we haven't broke anything, and our tests even make it a little bit better. Excellent. So let's commit our change. So navigation controller test of isActive method. So now let's use Protractor to make end-to-end tests to make sure that links in menu really get this active class. First, we need to install Protractor. So let's open package.json and let's add here Protractor. And also we're going to use the latest version. Let's save it, go to terminal and run npm install. Okay, that's good. Now we need to install standalone Selenium server. So to install it, we just need to go to Node Modules folder. Instead of it, we have the Protractor folder, and there in bin, we have Web Manager. Let's make update, and that will update or install Selenium for us. Good. Now we need to configure Protractor. And for that, let's just copy configuration file from the Node Modules Protractor example crom only conf, and we're going to copy to protractor conf.js file. Okay, so let's have a look at this protractor conf.js. So there are two ways to run Selenium. So one is by using Chrome, like we have here. So we start Selenium with the help of Chrome. And the second one is firing Selenium independently. So let's have a look at both of these variants. So here we have a Chrome only true, and then the Chrome driver, but this Chrome driver here is not for us, so we need to specify Node Modules, and then Protractor, and then Selenium Chrome driver. Also, we need to specify the base URL where we want Selenium to go, and the base URL is http 001 port 9000. Also, right here in specs, let's change it to include all end-to-end specs and test end-to-end folder and everything in it. like this. Okay, and that's all that we need to do to set up Protractor. So let's save this file, and now we are ready to write our first end-to-end test. So let's create in test, we're going to create end-to-end folder, and inside of it, let's create navigation spec.js file. And we need to create this folder. So as usual, we use strict, and we use describe to describe navigation menu. Inside of it, we will have our example. So we want to make sure that it changes active link depending on route. So now we will use Protractor browser object to get to root URL. And then we want to get this active element. So let's create a new variable active list item. We call it active list item. And we use another method element. And we want to find by CSS with a class of active. So this is the active list item on the page. And after that, we want to get the text of it. So we will have text, this active list item, and we want to find element by tag name. That's the link. And from this element, we want to get text. So this way we have text from the active menu. And now we expect that this text to equal home, because on the root page we want home to be active. Let's save it. Now to run it, first we need to run grunt server. So let's do this, grunt serve, and in additional tab we're going to run Protractor and use protractor.conf.js as the configuration file. Let's run it, and we green. Excellent. So you saw how the Chrome browser was used to navigate through the page and to make the assertions. So let's add another thing here. So first of all, let's click on the ages link. So we'll have ages link, and we want to find element by link text edges. And now we want to do absolutely the same 2 lines here, except that I'm going to remove this vars. So we again looking for active list item, which should be changed when we clicked on this link. So first, again, of course, we need to click on it. And then we expect that the active element has changed and the text also changed. So we expect that text in this case to equal edges. Let's save it, go to terminal, and let's run Protractor again. Excellent. So we totally green. So now let's see how to configure it to use Selenium server. So first, of course, I need to run Selenium server. And for that, I again go to node module, Protractor, bean, WebDriver Manager, start. And that will start Selenium. And you can see here that it listens and expects requests to 00004444 port. So to make it work, let's go back to Protractor configuration file, and we're gonna comment out this Chrome, and instead of them, we'll use Selenium address, and we specify that it is HTTP 00004444 WD hub. And let's save it. So now let's go back here. I'm going to open another tab and run Protractor. And now it's using Selenium, which runs right here, and you can see how it has been used. And we still green. So these are the basics of Protractor testing. So if we go back to our Protractor test, you can see that we used browser to visit some pages, and we used element to find elements by some method, for example by CSS, or we used find element method, and again by tag name, for example. And also we can take any element and make a click on it. And you, of course, can read about Protractor API on its official website. So let's commit the change. Unit and end-to-end tests. Okay, now we have tested the behavior we introduced in previous episode. We saw how to create controller tests as well as end-to-end protractor tests. In the next episode, we'll see the alternative way to make end-to-end tests with Capybara. So thank you very much for your time and see you in the next episode.